A while back, I made a video on SpongeBob. This was in early 2018. By the time this video is coming out, I might have possibly released a sequel to that video. I don't know, I'm writing this in advance. That grand theory is basically about how SpongeBob is insane, and the proof for this lies in Squidward. When Squidward gets incredibly mad, he laughs and screams like a maniac and acts sillier than SpongeBob, which led me to believe that because SpongeBob is like that 24/7, he is in fact completely crazy. And while most of that theory revolves around discussing Squidward and his outbreaks, I never actually delved into what he's got going on. That trip to clarinetland, why he so simplistically snaps from little things, his narcissism, all of it. So first I'll recap all I've got on Squidward, and then we'll find out what's really going on, because something seriously is. Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and recapping the SpongeBob video, Squidward is a fickle narcissist with a temper as short as Mrs. Friggin' Puff. Squidward, without a doubt, has always been this way, though SpongeBob and Patrick have amplified it. Squidward is a very immature narcissist. His outlets are forms of art, such as painting and music, but he fails at them and scoffs at the idea of him sucking. We've even seen him, on a couple of occasions, literally hint at suicide, most notably that time with the noose. So, he is suicidally depressed, and without his two primary outlets, he'd be highly pent up inside, which he is already. He's overstressed, and his trip to clarinetland is incredibly symbolic of what happens when he gets hyper-anxious. It's a hallucinated panic attack due to the loss of his clarinet. We get a direct look at his thought process, so let's delve. For those who don't remember this episode, or for those who've been waiting for a theory on it for ages, I'll recap. Squidward puts his clarinet in a safe he shares with SpongeBob, and SpongeBob makes some physically impossible renovations to the safe to better organize its contents. It gets crazier and crazier, and Squidward runs through the now halls of the safe looking for his clarinet. It takes him to curtains, which he pulls back to reveal a land full of clarinets and a massive eagle head. The eagle tells him that this is a sacred place where clarinets roam free, and clarinets cannot be owned by someone. He then eats Squidward, and Squidward falls down, presumably through the ground, into the rest of the eagle's body. He lands in the stomach, where he finds SpongeBob, who he tackles to the ground, falling him through a hole into a square room with two mirrors. The ceiling closes up, and a couple of alternate universe Squidwards appear in his reflections and do weird actions with the clarinet, taunting him. Squidward runs out of the room and across a clarinet bridge, which eats him and fires him into a pinball machine of SpongeBob's face, being played by Patrick. Patrick wins Squidward, and Squidward asks what on earth is going on. Patrick tells him eerily that it must be the pressure. Then everything shakes, Patrick runs, and a vacuum, presumably the pressure difference Patrick mentioned, sucks up Squidward, explodes, and it sends SpongeBob and Squidward into space. They hop off of Earth, he catches SpongeBob, and then it's revealed that the whole episode was in his mind, and the pressure of being anxious about his clarinet made him go nuts. SpongeBob approaches and reveals that he had the clarinet this whole time. Squidward, who went nuts because of just a few minutes without his precious clarinet, then flips out. So what does this all mean? Well, it's of course a panic-induced daytime nightmare, all because Squidward was missing his precious clarinet. But why fret over such a tiny item so greatly? Well, that's my theory. Along with his art, it's the only thing keeping him literally alive. This was completely proven by this one episode. He takes a trip to his subconscious where he meets the eagle. The eagle tells him that clarinets need to be free creatures. As for what that truly means, well, that's the fun part. You see, his two tethers to his life, his tethers to being non-suicidal, have turned into his narcissistic pleasures. His dependency on them has become too great, and he needs to give them up. And he won't return to suicidal depression if he loses these things. At this point in time, he'll just go nuts. That's why this manifestation of his subconscious, this eagle, is telling him to give them up. These clarinets are like Squidward. They need to be free of this tether to life. In this world, clarinets have life, and everything else is dead. indicating to Squidward that his clarinet needs to be free of him, because maybe he needs to die, or in the least, not die while insane. Of course, this also means that the box he's trapped in while his AU doppelgangers torture him represents the fact that he has boxed himself into the fact that he cannot live without the support of a materialistic item. His clarinet's the one who's been torturing him all this time, not SpongeBob. He unfairly blames SpongeBob for his insanity, when he should only be blaming SpongeBob for the increase in depression. It's his clarinet that has done this to him, and as we see in his subconscious, he's actually terrified of it. As for his love of painting, that's another typical art form that he uses as an outlet. It's almost like his backup if something goes seriously wrong. He's not amazing at art by any means, but being told that he sucks will cause him to deny. In fact, we've legitimately seen him go through the 5 stages of grief in many episodes. Usually these stages are attributed with the acceptance of death, or in his case, giving into the depression and by extension, the hinted suicide. In the Magic Conch episode, he denies working with his idiotic neighbors, then he gets furious, then he begins to bargain, asking the conch for something to eat. Finally, he gets tired and depressed, before finally, at the end of the episode, accepting the insanity around him and giving into the conch. Denial we see hit him many times. People will tell him he isn't good, and he'll deny, then get angry. Then he'll try to do things to get better, then he'll get sad and sometimes accept something in the very end. Normally he only gets to anger, but this process has made its way through him many times, and by the end, he has a mental break. These stages are directly tied to the process of death, once again giving us immediate confirmation that art and his clarinet are what's keeping him alive, a creative outlet. And this is serious, legitimate, real-life psychological business that real people often deal with. And my theory of Squidward's depression borders on being a fact if you simply look at him. Even in the Tiki Tiki episode, after he cries himself to sleep, he wakes up stressed about wanting peace, and then he walks outside to find the Tiki land SpongeBob and Patrick created. He thinks it's a mirage, and then he admits to himself saying, "So this is what insanity's like," which is interesting. So he does know that insanity is right around the corner for him. Apparently, he's been at this point before. He then claims that he'll end up in the padded room at the cephalopod hall. He knows all of this, so it's hard to say that he hasn't encountered some form of insanity before. Clearly, he was administered the clarinet and art as coping mechanisms to keep him feeling fulfilled in life. So maybe he isn't a narcissist. Maybe he's just so emotionally tied to what he does because without it, he'll be dead to himself. That's why he so angrily denies everyone who tells him he sucks, because he knows he does. And acceptance of that would mean the one thing his therapists fear most. You know, it even makes me wonder if the intelligent Patrick personalities have intentionally put the dumber ones in control more often just because of how emotionless and sadistic they are. They know Squidward's depressed. They want him to suffer because it really is Patrick who's the root cause of Squidward's increased depression, not as much as SpongeBob. The initial cause of this depression, as we've been painfully made aware, was his inability to surpass Squilliam in his schooling, the inability to become anything more than the unpopular butt of jokes. I feel that we really do see a lot of the show through Squidward's eyes. SpongeBob, of course, isn't as nuts as we think. We've seen Squidward hallucinate SpongeBob's laughing many times before. It's all Squidward projecting his internal psychotic laughing onto SpongeBob. I mean, I think we've even seen Squidward's therapist before, although I can't remember. Likely the same one who suggested these coping mechanisms, and it's very unlikely that SpongeBob and Patrick had all the resources or voice modifications to cause all of those tikis to start singing and dancing. Squidward himself admitted to giving in to the Tiki Land, and this caused the rest of it to start going crazy. That was his imagination. He didn't even detect it was fake until it literally blew up because he didn't want to think it was fake. He'd given in to his insanity. He even has a breakdown when he realizes that he wasn't insane. He wanted to become insane. And then guess what? His retribution, his new form of fun, is an immature ride in which he rams into SpongeBob and Patrick, and he laughs like SpongeBob as he bathes in the immaturity I've constantly claimed he has. But all of this isn't enough, and like all of these SpongeBob SquarePants theories I'm creating, I simply don't have the time or resources to watch every single episode looking for more times where Squidward indicates to us that his clarinet and art are his lifelines. So you guys comment all of the times you can think of when he's indicated these things, because another video will likely be coming soon. You know why? Because all of this is getting very intriguing. Until then, I'm the Theorizer.